Something just cracked open in the NFC South, and if this move becomes real, it could tilt the entire division on its axis. One moment, just one decision, might hand the Atlanta Falcons the kind of defensive firepower they've been dreaming about for years. For weeks, the NFC South has felt like a powder keg. But today, it finally started to smoke. Behind closed doors, deep in front office hallways where careers are made and destroyed, a rumor has begun to pulse, quiet at first, but now loud enough to shake Atlanta all the way to its core. A division rival could be weakening. Atlanta could be strengthening. And one blockbuster decision might send shockwaves through the next half-decade of Falcons football. The whispers began with Cleveland, an organization staring at a crossroads. They're 4-7, stuck between patching holes and rebuilding, with more cap space than direction. And in the center of that storm sits a name Atlanta fans know well, Denzel Ward. Cleveland's iron-willed corner. A shutdown specialist with the resume to back it up. A defender who can erase half the field like it's nothing. Ward isn't just a player you trade. He's a player you build around. Which is why the rumor hit Atlanta like lightning. Cleveland is willing to listen. Atlanta is willing to talk. And a second-round pick in 2026 might be enough to make it real. Ward has spent 8 years carving his name into opposing offenses. 280 solo tackles. 15 interceptions. 50 pass breakups. Quarterbacks who test him walk away with regret, posting a rating barely above 75 when they challenge his coverage. That alone tells you what kind of shadow he casts on a football field. And even in 2025, while Cleveland's defense wobbled around him, Ward remained a pillar. 10 games. 3 picks. Forced fumbles. Tenacious run support. Explosive closing speed. A PFF grade in the mid-80s. Production that refuses to dip, even when the roster around him does. So why move him? Because Cleveland is trapped in a storm of their own making. They're staring down a massive financial decision with Myles Garrett. They're desperate to rebuild their wide receivers and edge depth. And the clock is ticking on their cap room. They might not be able to keep everyone. And Ward might be the sacrifice. If Cleveland pulls that trigger, the consequences won't be small. Losing a corner of Ward's caliber can slice the heart out of a secondary. It's the kind of move that haunts a franchise, like the Jaguars watching their pass defense fall apart after Jalen Ramsey walked out the door. Cleveland knows that pain is real. Atlanta sees an opportunity inside it. And if this trade ever becomes more than a whisper? The Falcons' path to defensive dominance, real, sustained dominance, could begin with this single moment. And that's why the NFC South may be on the verge of a shift no one saw coming. If the whispers out of Cleveland ever turn into a handshake, Atlanta's entire identity on defense could change overnight. Not in small ways. In seismic, franchise-altering ways. Because Denzel Ward isn't just another corner. He's the kind of defender who changes what an offense dares to attempt. Picture this, A.J. Terrell locking down one side. Ward stalking the other like a shadow with a heartbeat. Two corners who don't just cover, they suffocate routes, erase windows, and force quarterbacks into mistakes they never recover from. Suddenly, every throw becomes a risk. Every dropback becomes a gamble. Every offensive coordinator in the NFC South starts circling Atlanta on the schedule with a knot in their stomach. Ward's skill set is pure man coverage domination. He doesn't just follow the opponent's best receiver. He invades their space, disrupts their rhythm, and forces them to rethink who they are on the field. With a player like that in Atlanta's uniform, the secondary doesn't just improve, it transforms. Interceptions rise. Turnovers come in waves. Games that slipped away in the final minutes start bending back in Atlanta's favor. Analysts projecting the impact don't sound optimistic, they sound startled. They believe Ward's arrival could push Atlanta's interception totals into the high teens, nearly doubling the team's turnover production. That kind of swing doesn't just affect numbers. It affects momentum, confidence, the very pulse of a football team. Imagine a defense that cuts down big plays by a quarter. Imagine a unit that forces offenses into third and long because the first two downs go nowhere. Imagine opposing receivers taking hits, staying low, bracing for contact because Ward limits them to just a handful of yards after the catch. This isn't a minor upgrade. It's a philosophical shift. A defense with Ward and Terrell would give Atlanta freedom it hasn't had in years. Defensive schemes suddenly open up, blitzes from unexpected angles, disguised coverages, aggressive fronts that trust the back end to hold firm. The coordinator can take risks because Ward can erase the consequences. And in the biggest moments, the tense fourth quarters, the playoff battles, the silent stadiums holding their breath, Ward's composure becomes priceless. His experience in tight, high-pressure situations becomes a lifeline. Those are the snaps where legends are made, or lost. Ward tilts those moments toward victory. Look around the league. Teams that rise in January almost always have a corner who rules the boundary. Miami's resurgence after bringing in a star corner wasn't luck, it was a blueprint. The kind of blueprint Atlanta could follow. Add Ward to this roster, and suddenly the Falcons aren't just improving. They're entering the conversation. A conversation about deep postseason runs. About NFC contention. About rewriting the expectations of what this defense can be. And the rest of the division? Carolina, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, they'd feel the tremor instantly. Facing a secondary with two elite corners is a nightmare most quarterbacks never wake up from. Pass windows shrink. Mistakes multiply. Drives collapse. That's the ripple effect of Denzel Ward. Cleveland knows how valuable he is. They know the damage his departure could cause. But cap space, contracts, and long-term planning don't leave room for sentiment. They're staring at hard decisions, and Ward might be the piece they're forced to move. For Atlanta, it's the kind of opportunity that only appears once in a generation, a chance to reshape its future with one bold move. If this trade becomes real, it won't just be a transaction. It could become a signature moment, the moment the Falcons' defense found its new identity. If this trade becomes real, both franchises would walk away changed. Cleveland with the breathing room and draft capital they desperately need, and Atlanta with something far more powerful, a defender who can tilt the outcome of a football game with a single snap. For the Falcons, this wouldn't just be a roster move. It would be a declaration. A declaration that the quiet rebuilding years are over. A declaration that the window isn't opening someday, it's opening now. Imagine the moment Ward walks into the Falcons facility for the first time. Coaches straighten up. Players exchange looks. A ripple of electricity spreads through the building, because everyone knows what an elite corner brings: confidence. Swagger. A belief that no matter how loud the stadium gets, no matter how dangerous the opponent is, Atlanta has someone who can take away the opponent's most dangerous weapon. Suddenly the pass rush has room to breathe. Suddenly linebackers can take more risks. Suddenly the entire defense plays faster because they know the back end is locked down. That's the power of a true shutdown corner. Ward and Terrell together would become a nightmare pairing, two predators hunting routes, jumping throws, and eliminating the very rhythm offenses rely on. Atlanta's defense wouldn't just improve, it would evolve into something tight, fierce, and unforgiving. A steel trap waiting to snap shut. Think of what that does to the rest of the NFC South. Quarterbacks who once attacked the Falcons' secondary now hesitate. Receivers who once ran free now fight for every inch. Drives that once stretched down the field now stall before they begin. This is how playoff defenses are born. This is how championship defenses are forged. And deep in the hearts of Falcons fans, a new kind of hope would start to burn, a belief that maybe, just maybe, the long-awaited breakthrough is within reach. The kind of defense that flips momentum, fuels comebacks, and carries a team through the cold pressure of January football. But as inspiring as the vision is, everything still hangs in the balance. The deal isn't done. Not yet. And the NFL is a world where one phone call can change destiny, one hesitation can kill a trade, and one bold decision can reshape an entire franchise. If Cleveland decides to move forward, Atlanta could receive a generational piece, The kind of acquisition people look back on years later and say, "That was the moment everything changed." And if Ward becomes a Falcon? This defense might not just be improved. It might be remembered. A unit that opponents fear. A unit that defines seasons. A unit capable of pushing Atlanta back into the heart of the championship conversation, not as underdogs, but as true contenders. The future hangs on a single possibility, and if it becomes reality, the Falcons' path forward may never look the same again.